Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are doing a book series review and I'll open it up with a quote. Just give me a second to find it. Okay, so if you grew up as a teenager in the 2010s, you will have heard of John Green, probably have read all this stuff. I was obsessed. And so you know how in The Fault in Our Stars, when Hazel Grace says, "Sometimes you read a book and it fills you with this weird evangelical zeal, and you become convinced that the shattered world will never be put back together unless and until all living humans read that book." And this is my quote journal. I wrote this quote down when I was like 14, maybe somewhere around there, and I thought I understood what it meant. I thought I got it. And then fast forward about 10 to 12 years, and then I read this trilogy. And I realized I really had no idea what John Green was talking about. But now I do, because what was this? And why has not everybody read this? I just, forget. So book banning aside, which I think is wrong for all kinds of reasons, but forget To Kill a Mockingbird, forget Shakespeare, forget Frankenstein and Heart of Darkness and Lord of the Flies, throw all those out. We don't need to be reading those in school anymore. First of all, we're sick of it. Second of all, the kids can't relate to it anymore. And I get it. It's important to read books that you don't quite understand and to get perspectives from different time periods. I get that. But why does every single book that we read in English class in high school from I don't know, the newest book was probably 40 years old. Some of them are over 100 years old. Why are all of them ancient? Okay, get rid of some of them, bring in some new stuff, and start with this. Because this is the epitome of dystopian literature. And it has so many lessons in it that teenagers especially can learn from, and adults can too. I would even go so far to say that this trilogy is more important, or should be more important to our culture, than The Hunger Games. And I love The Hunger Games, okay? I am a huge part of that fandom. I'm obsessed. I cannot wait for the new movie to come out in the fall. Even though I have yet to read the new book, I will do it before the movie comes out. And I'm saying that this is ranked higher in terms of the lessons and the themes that it explores, while also being one of the most mind-blowing plots and perfect character studies that I've ever come across. And I will admit, when reading this first book, Scythe, I was skeptical for most of it. I was like, I don't know. And I'll get into why that is in a minute here. But then I read books 2 and 3, and these are not thin, okay? I read these two, and I just was blown away. The setup from book 1 to get these, incredible, incredible. So, yeah, that is the short review about the fact that more people need to be reading these. And I will not shut up about this. I'm sorry in advance, because I will be recommending this until the day I die. So, yeah. So, what is Scythe? So, the first book is Scythe, and this is the Arc of a Scythe trilogy. And I do believe that there is a kind of short story collection companion called Gleanings that goes with it as well. And the author, Neil Shusterman, is releasing a new book in the series either later this year or early next year, but it's like a prequel. So the main trilogy is finished. You can read the whole thing now, and you definitely should. But what is Scythe about? So basically, it is set in a future world where humanity has conquered death. Okay, that is the base premise. So essentially, nobody dies anymore because they have the technology to revive people, to grow back bones, to cure all diseases are cured. If you get hit by a truck, they can bring you back. It takes a few days, but they can bring you back. And everybody has access to this technology. There are no barriers to this technology. And the other part about the society is that there's no government anymore. And the whole entire world is under the governing control of this kind of sentient AI system called the Thunderhead. And this AI is a benevolent AI, and it runs the entire world. It runs the ambulance drones that come up and pick up your body and revive you. It runs the internet. It runs the schools and the workforce. And there's no politics. Everybody's happy. There's a universal basic income. People can pursue the things they want to pursue in life. And when you get too old, you you turn the corner and you get revived as a 20-year-old again, or whatever age you want to be revived at, and you just get to live your life again. And some people have multiple generations of their family. They remarry 6 times. It's this big utopia, right? But it's the entire world. The only problem is that the Thunderhead hasn't been able to fix is overpopulation. The Earth still has limited resources. And that's where the Scythes come in. And the Scythes are chosen and trained to be killers. And they are the people that basically deal with overpopulation. Scythes are the only people in the world that are allowed to kill another person, and that death will be permanent. And there's different Scythedom, there's a massive Scythedom across the world, but there's different regions, and different regions handle it differently. Different Scythes handle it differently. Some have certain methods. They pick the people that they're gleaning based off of real world statistics from the old days. Some people just grab randoms, but basically anybody at any time could fall victim to a scythe, and that's the end of their story. But essentially, for most of the population, they get to live forever. And the biggest question that this whole series revolves around is death what gives life meaning? And I just can't even explain to you how well it does that. Because you get to see all kinds of people living their lives, and some of them who are so, I don't know, bland, unfeeling, they're not getting any joy. And it's you start to wonder as you're reading it, is it because there's no expiry date on their life? They don't feel any sense of urgency. They don't have the fears that we have that's like, oh my gosh, like I have to do something important to be remembered. Because in their eyes, well, I have another 100, 200, God knows how long before a scythe might kill me. So, and it's so cool that this society, like, it doesn't fear death. Nobody gets cancer. You don't get food poisoning. You don't, there's not even airplane crashes. And like you go into this book thinking, oh, this is a pretty cool society. It sounds, and it's, when you read about a utopia, like a utopia is a perfect world. And most of the time when you read a dystopian book, it's based on a utopia that went horribly wrong because perfect doesn't exist, right? And when you first go into this book, you're thinking, I don't really see how this could go wrong. It sounds great. The AI is not even like dodgy, And that's the other question that comes up too, is like, is the AI good? Is that helpful to humanity, or is it hindering humanity as a whole? And then the third question is, should anybody be able to make the decision of whether somebody else lives or dies? And that's the whole question of being a scythe. And basically, the story follows Citra and Rowan, who are two teenagers that become scythe apprentices. And it follows their journey of training to become scythes, entering the scythedom, and finding out along the way that things might not be so perfect and utopian as they were led to believe. Big shocker. But it really deals with it in such an amazing way, with the slow unraveling of this society's ideals. It's not like, oh, big shocker, chapter 3, sinister stuff's going down. No, it's a very slow build to the point where you're almost blindsided as the reader just as much as these two characters are blindsided by what happens. Like, you get lulled in this false sense of security, and then slowly it's like, something's not really right here. And then, like, partway through, you hit like the first plot twist. And this series, let me tell you, is full of plot twists. And I know some people are like, oh, you can't tell me that the book has plot twists because then I'll know what to expect. I'll be looking for them. You will not figure this crap out. I tell you this right now. It's insane. And yet, looking back, it all makes sense. But you will not, like, this isn't an exaggeration. I could probably guarantee that 90% of what happens in these books, you will not see coming. You'll just be sitting there with your jaw on the floor. Like, what just happened? What did I just read? It's crazy. So the first plot twist happens partway through this book, and I was just like, okay, guess I'm sad, because what do you mean? You set up this premise, and now, and I can't get into it because spoilers, but it's crazy, the stuff that goes down in this book. And then it very quickly, you're like, oh my gosh, this is not going well. I don't know how anybody's going to fix this, these deep-rooted problems in the society. And it just goes from there. And the only issue I had with this first book, Scythe, I rated it 4 stars. And that was because I found the narrative style to be really hard to read at first. And now that I've read the other 2 books, I didn't have the issue in books 2 and 3 because I got used to it. But it's like, I think it's kind of omniscient, but also third person limited. I don't read a lot of omniscient books, so that might just be the disconnect on its own, is that I'm not used to it. But it felt like a weird kind of omniscient, and I don't know if that's just my lack of experience with that type of point of view. But it felt very detached. It felt like we were way in the air watching this stuff happen. And even though we were like looking through certain people's eyes at certain times, I didn't feel completely connected to these people. It was like I was watching them through a doorway from another room. Like I wasn't with, like, there was a bit of a gap. But as an avid reader and as a writer myself, I think that was the point. The detached nature of the book made the whole thing that much more impactful, because it gave you that like eerie, watching like a train crash in slow motion kind of vibe. So if you're reading this and you're feeling like, what is this point of view? Like, keep reading, because everything else is worth it, I promise. And you should get used to it by the end of the book. But it's just, yeah, it's a little jarring at first. But yeah, so basically this book ends not exactly on a cliffhanger, but crap went down, okay? And then book 2 comes along. Obviously, I can't say much because, again, spoilers, and I will get into some spoilers at the end of this video if you've read the series. But Thunderhead introduces a new point of view, and I was just like, who is this person? Why do I care? For, I want to say, a good, like, 60% of this book. The other characters are in it too, don't get me wrong. It's all, but you're following now, like the story diverges and the characters have diverged, so you're following several different plot lines and you're trying to figure out how it all comes together. And then when it all comes together, you're like, yeah, there's no way I was gonna figure that out. But so anyway, you're gonna meet Grayson, and you're gonna have to have patience with Grayson, okay? Because I promise you, it comes together and it all makes sense. And this author is a genius. And this book, the main premise of this book is, because it's obviously it's an overarching storyline, but in this one, two of the Scythes that we meet in book one are being like hunted down, I guess you could say. They keep like narrowly avoiding death, and there's this big inquest into who is trying to off them. And I was trying to figure it out the whole time. I had some theories, and when they reveal to you who it is, like I am still like physically ill when I think about the chapter when the bomb drops on what has been happening this whole time. Like, I'm gagged, okay? Like, I cannot even describe to you the sheer shock and horror and oh my god that I felt when this chapter landed. And I was just like, because I didn't even know that was an option. It's just insane. Like, this book just takes all your, like, the series takes all your expectations and it's just like, you're thinking, is it A, B, or C? And it's over here like, it's W. And you're just like, what? But I promise you, it makes complete sense. It's just, you don't, basically, this whole series, you spend thinking, the author isn't going to go there. And then he does, and he goes beyond. It's crazy. And then this third book, what goes down at the end of this book is probably the most insane thing I've ever read. And then you open this book, and you're just like, I don't know how much more of this I can take, because the stress, the anxiety, the pain, I cannot, and you're just watching everything fall apart piece by piece, and you're not sure how any of this can be fixed. Who's going to make it to the end of the series? If you're going to get to the end and the author is just going to off them all, like, is the world going to end? We don't know. But it took me months to read this book because I could only read so much at a time before the sheer anxiety of not knowing what was going to happen just made me put the book down. I was like, I can't do this. And it was so good, and I couldn't do it. My heart rate's climbing just thinking about everything. The amount of things that are packed into this book, I don't want to say it's insane again, but it's insane. And more point of views, more threads coming together, more different storylines, and just the way the author connects it all together, it's a masterpiece. Like, I aspire to write this well. Like, someday, maybe I'll write something that's anywhere close to this caliber, because I have no notes. Like, I've been reading for 20 years. I have been writing for 13 years, and I have not a single bad thing to say about this book. There's not a single thing I would change. There's not a moment where I was too confused or where the explanation didn't pay off. I was crying in this book. I was laughing. I was gasping out loud, okay? I read this one via audiobook mostly, and the audiobooks are really good too. I found it was actually easier to read the audiobook than it was to physically read it because of that, like, weird point of view again. And, like, I was listening to it in the car on my, like, commute to and from work, and, like, the bits and pieces of that, and just I beat my car just like oh my god, like, gasping aloud by myself in my car every time another twist came through, and you're just like, there's no way. And then, like, the characters would, like, narrowly escape death, and you're just sitting there like, yeah. So basically my point is, if you haven't read this series, you're doing yourself a major disservice, and I think the world is worse off for it. And more people need to read this book, because the lessons that it's taught, the discussion on AI, the discussion on life and death, morals, the discussion on totalitarianism and even capitalism and dictatorship, and I don't know, is it border communism? I don't really know, but, like, it talks about all these extreme points of view and arrogance and the way that power corrupts people, and other people, like, it talks about the dangers of complacency and seeing problems and just staying quiet about it and being like, oh, it'll fix itself, and then 10 years later it's a huge problem. Like, and it talks about the dangers of the media and believing everything you hear, and it's just more people need to read this book. And that's all I have to say about that.